The Funcom dev team have just committed the cardinal sin of game development with Dune Awakening. They have chosen to listen to players' solutions instead of players' problems. And that is going to ruin the end game experience that they're looking to build in Dune Awakening in the deep desert. So we're going to take a look at some of this. We're going to come back to this one, right? Some areas of the deep desert will now be flagged as partial warfare PVE, while the deepest parts of the deep desert will remain as they currently are, high reward, high risk. I hate this change. I think it is the worst possible solution of all the available solutions they had. And I think this is just pandering to a player base that recognizes that there's a problem with the deep desert, but doesn't have the knowledge or experience to come up with a viable solution. And so they just want to eliminate the problem, right? You have PvE players who don't want to lose, their ornithopters or whatever in PvP. And so they just want to not be in the PvP zone. That's the easiest solution for them to see. And so they want this. But this is not the solution. This does not create the system that Funcom is trying to do with Dune Awakening, which is a PVPVE area, right? Not a PvE and a PvEP area, but a PvEVP area. And this has no value for that. All this does is increase separation. So we're going to take a look more of that later. But I want to let y'all know right out front, I do not have a good opinion of that solution. PvP itself has plenty of issues, absolutely, that need to be addressed. We're taking steps in that direction with our first changes to the Scout Ornithopters. These are fantastic changes. I think their focus on balance here is really good. I think their idea for balance here is really good, right? They chose the right solution here. And they chose the right direction, right? They didn't listen to players' solutions because every player's solution was to remove Scout Ornithopters rocket launchers. And removing the rocket launchers from Scout Ornithopters would have been a terrible choice. So here they listened, right, to the problems, and then they created their own solution, which is honestly very elegant, and it leaves significant ability to tweak balances as the game changes, as more modules are added to the vehicles, right? We're now going to have a very, very good path forward. We're going to have a really good idea of how we want things to affect your Ornithopter's flight. And then as they start adding, at least I hope they start adding new modules in the future to the vehicles, then we're going to be able to see those things change the way different vehicles can be utilized, and your loadout on your vehicle is going to start mattering as much as your build on your player. It's all going to start coming together in this really great way. I see that in the future of this game with vehicles, and I'm very excited. So Scout Ornithopters with rocket launchers attached will have their speed and maneuverability reduced. This is fantastic, right? If you have a loadout with a bunch of rocket launchers and all that other stuff, you can still go just as fast as everybody else, then everybody else can't get away from you. This game has already made it very clear that they want you to choose, right? Am I going out to gather materials or am I going out to fight? And the reason that they want you to choose those things is they want both types of players to go out together, right? They want you as a PvPer to go out with a PvEer, and they want you as the PvPer to bring rockets, and they want the PvEer to bring saddlebags. And so if you're going to make it where you have to make a choice, am I going to fight or am I going to run, then you need to actually be able to run. So reducing the speed and maneuverability of Scout Ornithopters with rocket launchers, fantastic. Rockets fired from Scout Ornithopters will have increased heat generation. This is a drastic debuff to DPS. Fantastic. Thrusters will provide a max speed bonus regardless of wings, ensuring that thrusters equipped Scout will be the fastest vehicles in the game. Again, I don't know why thrusters weren't like this to begin with. The fact that a thruster can only bring you up to like 130 kilometers per hour when the maximum speed of your Mark 6 glide is 180 is insane. So absolutely, it should just be a flat speed boost. Whatever speed you're going, it should increase your speed by 10, 15, 20 kilometers per hour, whatever it is. And you should just always be going that much faster than your maximum speed at whatever pitch you're currently at. This weird caps, because if you're gliding at 182 miles per hour or kilometers per hour and you hit the thruster, it does nothing right now. Just this change would honestly be enough to remove the rocket launchers from being a danger, at least for people who use thrusters. A new T5 infantry rocket launcher will be added to help improve the dynamics of vehicle/ground combat. I'm willing to bet this is going to be a heat seeker. They didn't really need to add a new rocket launcher. They could have just added rockets. But I'm willing to bet that this is going to be some sort of a lock-on heat seeker kind of thing. I think that's great because it really is difficult to hit the attack speed and stuff of the shoulder-mounted rockets are so slow that I think that's probably good. Or maybe they'll give you a rocket launcher with an increased attack speed or something like that. I don't know exactly how this is going to work. If the new rocket launcher is too good, then the old rocket launcher is just going to kind of be pointless. So maybe they should just change the old rocket launcher. I don't really know. We'll see. Additional changes to mechanics like respawn timers, vehicle storage tools, hand scanners, and other mechanics that we see being abused in the deep desert. I wonder how vehicle storage tools are being abused in the deep desert. That's interesting. Respawn timers are being abused in the deep desert, and hand scanners. Probably hand scanners are being abused down in testing stations. I haven't really gone down into those yet. The intended dynamic of the deep desert PvP and Dune Awakening is that unless you really mess up, you always have the option to retreat in good order with whatever you've managed to claim so far. If you're smart and vigilant, you never have to fight if you don't want to. If you run, you'll have to call a halt to whatever task you were pursuing. But that should always be a choice. PvP should happen when both parties decide they want to fight over a location. So this is very important, right? Fighting over a location. And this is always kind of the way I saw Deep Desert PvP as well, is once you chase somebody off, there's no point in running them down to kill them. The value here isn't about, the reward here isn't about what you get from your enemy. The reward is gaining temporary control over a resource that you're trying to farm, right? Giving you more access to that resource in the moment. It's a moment-to-moment gameplay reward, not taking things from your enemy. You want to run them off, not steal their resources. I think that's a very good way to look at the rewards in PvP in this game. And also, as we get closer to this intended gameplay loop, your PvE players are going to have much more ability to get out into the deep desert, because if they're always going to be able to run away, then they're going to run away, and that's going to be just fine, right? They're not losing their ornithopters. Maybe they're having to run away more often than they'd like, but that's much less frustrating than just having your entire ornithopter bricked, because the tier 6 scout orny can literally just run down and kill anything. So if they find you, you just lose. And that's the way things are working right now. So hopefully we'll see we see that in the future. So the deep desert becomes a place where people battle it out over specific objectives, unburied testing stations and shipwrecks, resources-focused islands, and of course, spice flows. Finally, the intended dynamic has always been combined arms. We have infantry and ground vehicles and air vehicles, and they're all supposed to have clear roles, clear strength, and clear counters. Thopters will always be incredibly important for crossing the desert, but they shouldn't also be the dominant force in actual battles. We're planning to make more changes to the deep desert to accommodate ground battles and reinforce the use of player builds. Okay, so this is also very important. And I think the reason we're not seeing the combined arms yet is that honestly, players just aren't here yet. We have rocket launchers on buggies, right? You could carry a buggy on an ornithopter out into a PvP area. You could drop it with your carrier ornithopter, and the PvP or the rockets for the buggy do more than twice as much damage as the rockets for the assault ornithopter, right? It is the most powerful rocket launcher in the game as far as rate of fire and damage dealt. So absolutely, let's get some buggies out there. Let's get some players on foot who are, we saw there was a really interesting video about somebody jumping down onto the back of a carrier on foot and then rocket launching that carrier's wings. That's intended gameplay. We've already seen the creative director and the dev team talk about the fact that they want you to be able to stand on the back of ornithopters, and you can, and that's a real thing. And that person showed that that was totally a viable option for combat. So you've got your Shigawire Claw can absolutely connect to ornithopters. You've got lots of really good suspensor belts. You've got lots of really good opportunity there. If you're a really good ground PvP player with a really interesting mobility build that can get up high enough to get themselves onto ornithopters and stuff like that, you could 100% play that way. I think a big part of the problem is that players haven't advanced enough and haven't had the time to develop skills enough to make this combined arms viable yet. So I'm hoping we don't take too big a swing with some of this stuff. I think the focus needs to be on fixing the faction and Landsraad system, and that will ultimately drive more of these larger combined arms combats. Instead of trying to fix the vehicles to make combined arms more likely, I think we need to fix the faction and the Landsraad system instead before we start looking too closely at this. As a system, okay, so now let's talk about the Landsraad system. As a system, it is an activity driver that is designed to promote the conflict between the factions, internal politics between the guilds, while providing goal thresholds for individuals and groups to work towards getting personal rewards. And the Landsraad should be doing that for everyone who wants to participate in the Elder game, endgame. Be they PvE or PvP, the Landsraad should be giving you things to do every day and every week. Absolutely. It's nothing new from a design perspective. We've seen daily and weekly quests in games for a long time. Our approach was to try and frame this system around the greater politics of Dune universe by having players engage in activities to earn the votes of various Landsraad houses. Let me acknowledge that as an activity driver, the activities it asks you to participate in are simplistic. A lot of item hand-ins and crafting requests that's because the system is in its earliest launchable iteration. Okay, so this is a great thing to acknowledge. The problem is that your entire endgame loop hinges on the Landsraad system, and you launched it in a place that you yourself know is garbage. That's insane. The activities that the Landsraad asks you to do will become more varied as we flesh out the world with more content and activities. Fantastic. The Landsraad is an umbrella for all endgame activities. What form do those endgame activities take? More dungeons with bosses that drop endgame loot, more contracts that require specific tasks to be undertaken, more specialized delivery tasks that include components that cannot be stockpiled. If we ever add raids to the game, there will be a task on the Landsraad to complete those raids. It is a framework that holds the endgame activities in place. That's fantastic. I have nothing wrong with the Landsraad system itself. Landsraad is not necessarily broken because it's boring. Yes, it's boring because everything's a hand-in, the control points are garbage and stuff like that, but the Landsraad is broken right now because the faction system is broken. And at no point in here are they addressing the absolute shambles of a state that the faction system is in. There is no reason to fight with your faction. right? There's no interfaction conflict. It's all guild versus guild conflict right now. And that is trash tier gameplay. You need a faction system because there are a bajillion solos in this game. I have now a 32-person guild. Like 50% of my guild are solo refugees who just can't play the game solo anymore because they're seeing the writing on the wall. They're realizing that there's never going to be any safety for them in that deep desert because they're never going to be able to say, oh, look, there's a cluster of my faction mates. Let's go hang out in their general vicinity so that I have this de facto group that I'm with that can help me, and maybe I can help them, right? If they get attacked, I could fly over there and go fight. Because there's none of that, because there's no reason to actually ally with your faction, because there's no penalty for killing your faction members, mega guilds, Zergs, are totally dominating because they can just kill everyone, right? They don't have to deal with the faction politics. They just go out, do whatever they want. They don't kill each other. They've created their own factions, basically. And we might as well be playing Albion Online. That's not the focus of this game. That's not the vision of this game. The vision of this game is politics. And right now it's totally broken. And until that's fixed, the Landsraad system isn't even worth interacting with. I don't even have to worry about it, right? My guild was specifically built with the intention of affecting the Landsraad. I don't do Landsraad tasks. I haven't done them for 2 weeks now because my faction always wins because everybody on my server, on my world, joined my faction. So Atreides just always wins. I don't have to care. I don't have to try. I don't have to think, right? The only thing I have to worry about is when I go in the deep desert, are there people anywhere near me? Because if there are any people out there, I have to run away because everybody is an enemy because the faction system is broken. And that's just all there is to it. We will keep adding endgame content activities and more PvE content to the game going forward, both free and paid content in the form of DLCs and expansions. We are addressing some key flaws in the Landsraad design, the inability to hand in items after a square is completed, and the rapidity at which some squares are turned in. Stockpiling is currently rewarded, but that is not our intention for this system, and we will make some changes to address it as best we can. Landsraad rewards are supposed to reflect the endgame tiers of progression. This includes the vendors, which can be unlocked for an entire faction through participation. This is the intention, but once again, let me acknowledge that this isn't exactly in the right place. The Landsraad will be updated to provide micro rewards for solo and small group players. Thanks for listening, everyone, and apologies for the confusion. Once a live game launches, it becomes a collaborative effort between the developers and the players to make it something amazing. We appreciate your feedback on what we hope is the beginning of a long journey together. Bear with us. Our intention is to be clear and open with our communication and make Dune Awakening a game that everybody can enjoy. All right, let's go all the way back up to the top. I know this video is already a long one, but we're going to talk about this right here. Some areas of the deep desert will now be flagged as partial warfare PvE, while the deepest parts of the deep desert will remain as they currently are, high reward, high risk areas. Now, this, we talked a little bit again, does not change anything. This is not solving the problem that PvE players are having. PvE players and players in general are fairly simple, right? We see a problem and then we simply want that problem to not exist, right? So PvE players are going out into the deep desert. They're losing their ornithopters. They're getting eaten by worms because players are killing them out over the sand because they don't really understand the mechanics yet. I know I lost my first PvP fight out in the middle of the dunes and got my ornithopter and myself eaten by the worm. But that's terrible because I was trying to run all the way back to the shield wall. I wasn't going to make it. And I should have just turned for some rocks, right? I land in some rocks. The person kills me, whatever. I get my ornithopter destroyed, but they can't get it eaten by a worm because it can't drop a thumper. And then I die. I teleport back to base. I lose all the resources I gathered, but everything else I keep. And then I just carry on with my life, right? No issue. Or even I spawn right there where they were. Because even if they try and totally destroy, they're not killing the maximum durability of my vehicle. They're killing the existing durability of my vehicle. So they destroy my ornithopter or whatever. But then I just respawn, wait a couple of minutes, respawn, fix my ornithopter, and fly home. So a lot of some of the issues that PvE players are having is that we just don't understand the game yet. And so a lot of players are having much more difficulty in the deep desert than they should be having. Another system that is not being taken advantage of is the fact that your bases are safe in the deep desert 99% of the time. People are afraid to take their ornithopters out into the deep desert, so they're not realizing that if you dot the deep desert with bases, then you drastically reduce the distance to safety because you can create your own personal safe zones, right? You take a sub-thief console out there, you drop a 3x3, you put a pentashield over the top so that you can fly your scout or your assault ornithopter into the top of the base. And then if somebody attacks you, instead of flying 20,000 meters, meters, to try and get back to the shield wall, you fly 6 to get to your nearest base location. It doesn't have to have anything in it, right? One generator with enough fuel cells to last a week to keep the pentashield going. It doesn't have to be operational. It doesn't have to be anything. You just fly in there, drop yourself down, protect yourself, you're good to go. And so the last reason I think this is terrible is you're separating PvE and PvP players again. And that's not fun. Because PvPers can become content for PvEers, and PvEers can become content for PvPers, right? When you're out in the world, in the deep desert, if they fix the faction system, then instead of you trying to run away and get back to the shield wall, you should be running to the nearest PvPer, right? You should be hanging out in clusters in your faction, even if you're solo. Right? Even if you're all by yourself, you should be flying around, and if you see a bunch of faction mates, you should go gather near them because there's safety in numbers. Right now, all of these PKers out in the PvP zone who just want to blow up your ornithopter and get it thumpered and get it eaten by the worm, they're flying around by themselves because they're an extreme minority of the player base, and they have no ability to fight more than one person. So as soon as the faction system is fixed and I can just go hang out with my faction mates, as a PvE player, I'm safe, right? And now we're making pop-up safe zones, pop-up PvE zones that are being protected by actual players instead of the system, which is fantastic. You just have to fix the faction system. And then all of this is fixed. So I hope this is a temporary solution. I hope this isn't permanently where we go, because this is, in my opinion, the worst decision you could have made. And if this starts to stand and they don't make other solutions happen, right? This is even fine. If they just leave more of the deep desert as a PvE zone is fine as long as they fix the faction system. Because if this is the solution, if we stop right here, if we go, yay, we have more PvE area in the deep desert, and then we stop trying to fix things out there, then the game is DOA. There's no way to solve that. This is not, there's always going to be more reward for playing PvP. So PvEers are always going to feel left out until you give them a good, viable way to go out into the deep desert and interact with it, where PvP players are going to be protecting them. That's just all there is to it. So I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you're having fun out there in Arrakis and Dune. I'm still having a good time with the deep desert. I play on a pretty underpopulated world, so I get to go out there and gather up my resources and do what I want, make my progression. And I'm not really having the problems that a lot of other people are. Now that we understand as a guild that making pop-up structures out in the deep desert as often as we can, there's 32 of us, which means we've got access to 100-something bases that we can put down. So we can have little small micro bases placed all over the desert, and then we just fly to the nearest one and go inside the pentashield. And unless that PKer wants to sit there waiting for an hour plus for a desert storm to come by, and then spend all of their rockets and stuff trying to break into the little base and then try and kill us, we're safe, right? We just have to wait for them to go away. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing some of that next week. Don't forget that I do stream every day on Twitch and here on YouTube, so come and hang out and check out the streams. And I'm really looking forward to the future of Dune, despite the fact that I'm very angry about this solution right here, and that I think this is really, really bad. I am still hopeful because of some of the other solutions, particularly with the balancing of the ornithopters that they're putting out. So we'll see. They are being reactive, they are being vocal, they are making changes. And that's what I want to see. I want to see iteration, because you can't fix a problem if you don't try anything. So even if you're doing the wrong solution, at least it is something other than, well, you know, we think that this is the best way to do it and we're just going to leave it here. Because obviously it's not, because everybody wants to quit playing your game when they get to the deep desert. So we're iterating, we're trying something new. It's an absolutely trash tier solution. We're literally starting with the worst possible thing we could, but we're starting with something, and I'm totally happy with that. So I hope everybody has a good time. I hope to see you out there in Arrakis. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have yourselves a great day.